What's up everyone, my name is Ross and welcome back to the Watch Engineer. I'm pretty excited for today's video because it's the first time I'm going to be taking apart a watch on camera. And I have a vintage Vantage from the 1960s. Vintage Vantage. So Vantage is a model that is produced by Hamilton. Hamilton is a really well-known watch brand. They specialize in more luxury style watches, and they've been around for a really long time. But what actually happened was in the 1960s, they purchased a company called the Standard Time Corporation, and they used their capabilities to produce a more, let's call it, affordable watch model, and that's what they called Vantage. So it has, 17 jewels. It's a pretty nice watch still, and they've become, somewhat collectible. This one I bought off eBay for around $50, and it was advertised as running great. So you can see there the second hand is going, but let's throw this on the time grapher and see if it actually does run great. All right, so it's actually not too bad. The rate is not great. The amplitude is okay, and the beat error is good. So overall, I would say this watch is running okay. I definitely wouldn't say great though. But hey, hopefully that means all it needs is a service and some oiling, and it'll be good to go. So let's start by getting the case back off. Some nice squeaking sounds for you there. You can really see that it looks like someone tried to maybe pry this off, but it's a twist off. There were some scratches on the case itself there. And right there on the ratchet wheel, you can see standard time. So, like I said, the Standard Time Corporation was the company that Hamilton purchased to produce this model of watch. So, on all of the movements, you'll see standard time is printed right there on the ratchet wheel. The balance is also ticking away nicely there. So we're going to start by taking out this movement ring. Just figuring out where I can get a good grip on it. And it's kind of stuck on there. There we go. Put that to the side. So the movement ring just holds the movement in place, prevents it from hitting against the case back. And then we'll loosen this screw that holds the crown in place so we can get the crown out and ultimately get the movement out of the case. There's the crown. Just taking a look to make sure what condition it's in. At first I thought that the plating had worn off of it, but it looks like it was always sort of a brass or, gold color, darker color than the silver of the case. So there we can get the dial and movement out, and there, take a look at the case. It's really dirty, really scratched up. The crystal doesn't have any deep scratches. It's definitely scratched up, but I think we might be able to salvage it. Just pop it out. Yeah, it's not cracked anywhere. Just some scratches from normal wear. And now we can take a closer look at the dial. So the dial looks like it's in amazing condition. The words are all clearly legible. There's not really any staining, maybe some scuffs down in the lower left-hand corner there, right along the edge where my left thumb is. Let's see if we can get the crown and get these hands to overlap so they're easier to take off. Nah, that's not happening. So we're just gonna take the hands off like this. They're more or less straight up and down, so it shouldn't hurt them. So what I'm gonna do is take a plastic bag, just a regular old plastic bag, and put it across the dial like this. So that protects the dial when I use these hand lever tools right there that have hooks on the end so I can get underneath the hands and pop them up. And it protects the dial from getting scratched. That's all the plastic bag does. And boom, there you go. So the hands are off, and there goes the plastic bag. So I have this special box here that has a membrane on the lid and inside of it that I can put the watch hands into, and it'll just kind of suspend them in between those two pieces of plastic and just protect them a little bit better while I work on the rest of the watch. And to move these hands, I'm using these special tweezers. They have, I guess, plastic tips, and it just lowers the chance of you damaging the hands if you were using just regular steel tip tweezers. The really fancy ones have wooden tips, and they're really expensive, so I haven't sprung for those yet. So for now, I'm just making do with these plastic ones. I think they were like, I don't know, $10 on eBay. So just get the hands in there, close the lid, and that'll hold them in place. Next, we can turn our attention to getting this dial off of the movement. And there should be some small screws on the side that hold the dial in place. There's two posts that come off the dial, and these screws sort of tighten down against those posts. And there's one here. They're really small, so you have to have a steady hand, and I don't today for some reason. So there, I can get the screw loosened. There's usually two of them. I think this is no different. So hopefully that's loosened enough and I can get that screw out. Can't quite get a grip with these ones. Let's try these tweezers. There we go. Okay. First screw down, one more to go. So you can see it right there. Slipped. Oh, come on. There we go. Oh man. Where'd you go? There you are. Okay. They'll jump away on you. All right, so that's both dial screws out. So we should be able to slide this off. Now, sometimes they can be kind of stuck in there still, especially if it's been a while since the watch has been taken apart. So just gonna make sure that there's no surprises, no other screws. I don't think there are, so I'm gonna use the same tweezers that I used for the hands to gently pry this off. Just looking for where I can fit this underneath without hitting the balance. And look, it's coming loose. There we go. Nice. This is what we call the dial side of the movement, and it's in really nice condition. Not a lot of dirt, no rust that I can see. So next we'll take the dial and we'll pick it up with these same tweezers we used for the hands. And we'll put it in this special dial container that I have. It's kind of got this rubberized, raised insert and this cap that holds the dial in place and just protects it while I work on the rest of the watch. All right, so now we can really dive into the disassembly. So first I'll take off this little dial washer here. It's really meant to just keep the hour hand in place, prevent it from slipping. And I'm not sure what the name of this part is. Covers the cannon pinion, whatever it is. I'm still learning. So we can take the cannon pinion off. I don't have a cannon pinion removal tool just yet. They make really nice ones that make it a breeze, but for now the tweezers work just fine. Just got to make sure not to bend the center pivot there. So next I'll take off the movement, or I'm sorry, not the movement, the balance. And I've seen a lot of people do this when they take watches apart. It's the first thing they take off. And it's because the balance and the pallet fork really are the most delicate parts of the movement. The hairspring on the balance is very fragile. So just taking the balance off first prevents you from, accidentally slipping with a screwdriver and damaging it while you're taking the rest of the watch apart. So that's what I'll do here, just to be safe. Just gently coax the balance wheel out of there. Come on, there you go. And you can see it's just going crazy. Put that aside. So now we can get to work on the ratchet wheel. It's got that nice standard time engraving across it. And then this secondary wheel here, I don't know the proper name for it, but it actually has a reverse threaded screw. So to loosen it, you turn it to the right rather than to the left. And you have to be careful about that because that's really, I think, what most movements are like. But it's easy to kind of not think about it and just start, torquing down your screwdriver, going, why isn't this thing loosening? And before you know it, you just broke the screw. And as I take the parts off, I'm just trying to inspect them. Make sure there's no rust underneath or dirt or any debris. So trying to get this ratchet wheel off, and it seems like it's a little stuck. Could be like some dry oil from a previous service or the original service. Wow, yeah, okay. That was really tight on there. It should not be that tight. Come on. There we go. Yeah, there might be some dirt there. You can see around the edge. Next, let's get the click spring off. Or the click, I mean. The click springs should be underneath. So the click is what prevents the mainspring from unwinding once you have wound it. So when you twist the crown, you're winding the mainspring, you're tightening it. But you don't want that to unwind as soon as you let go of the crown, and that's what the click prevents from happening. Whoop! Screws are flying all over the place today. Luckily found that. And we'll just get the click off. Very small piece. There we go. So I'm looking for the click spring and I can't see it. I don't know where it is. I can't tell if it's there or not. So I'm just going to move on and take the bridge that's going over the train of wheels off. And I'll come back to that part. I'm learning that if you're sort of stuck on a part of the movement, move on if you can and come back to it. Just give your brain a little break. So 3 identical screws hold this bridge down. It is nice the more you work on watches, the more you notice there's kind of a method to the madness. There's some of the screws are interchangeable. Oh, how many screws can I lose today? Luckily, I'm not losing them completely. They're just jumping away from me. But yeah, for instance, these three screws on the train wheel bridge are identical to each other, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. So getting that bridge off reveals the train of wheels, and ooh, what is this? Huh. So this little filament was on the escape wheel. Not sure what it is. Doesn't look like a metal shaving, but either way, that's not ideal. Definitely don't want that anywhere near the balance or the pallet fork or escape wheel or anywhere inside the watch for that matter. So good thing we got that out. And now we can start taking the train of wheels off. Pull out this center wheel first. And I actually, I don't think I can get this other wheel off before taking the barrel bridge off. So I'm just going to move on and take off the pallet fork bridge. Making a mental note of what the screw looks like. And then I can just use my screwdriver to kind of get under the bridge here, kind of pry it up gently. There we go. It's coming. Looks good. And now I can get the pallet fork out. Probably the second most fragile part of the movement. You can see the two rubies that rub against the escape wheel. That's what's making the tick-tock sound in a mechanical watch. Get the escape wheel out. And I can finally tackle the barrel bridge. Looks like 3 screws holding this down. Again, they're probably interchangeable, just like the ones on the train wheel bridge. And I still can't see the click spring, which is concerning because I hope I didn't lose it or it was missing to begin with, but it was winding, so definitely couldn't have been missing to begin with, and I really hope I did not lose it. But I don't see the normal cutout for where it goes. Just looks different. Maybe once I get this bridge off, I can take a closer look. If I can ever get it off. Oop, need to unscrew more. Ugh. And that's why you take the balance off. Gotcha. Last one. There it comes. So let's see if I can actually determine where the click spring is. That's the dial side. So the click spring should be around where the click mounts. Oh, you know what? I do see something in there. Can you see that? It looks like a little hair. I mean, but that's definitely a spring. Is it mounted? in the bridge? I've never seen or heard of that, but I can't see where to get it out. This is the other side again, but I'm just going to put that down again and come back to it. So now I can take this wheel off that was underneath the barrel bridge. Oops. And this screw that holds the crown stem in place. If you remember, we loosened this to get the crown out, and it's actually mounted through the movement. So there's a plate that goes on top of this, and to get the screw out itself, that plate needs to be removed. But the plate has a hole in it that allows you to get a screwdriver in there if you want to just take the crown out. And this piece is what's on the dial side that this screw actually grabs onto, so it fell out when we loosened it. There goes the screw. So now we can get this sliding pinion and clutch pinion out of here. These are part of what everyone on the internet calls the keyless works, and I actually have a story I wanted to tell about that when we get to the other side of the watch, so stay tuned. And there's this last bridge here holding the center wheel in place. Couple of screws. Come on. Let's try this one. There we go. That's a little easier. All right, back to the stubborn one. There we go. Take this bridge off. And we're actually nearing the finish line here, so we can finally take off the mainspring barrel. Looks pretty clean. And this center wheel also looks pretty clean. And that'll do it for this side of the movement. And we can start working on the dial side. And I mentioned I had a quick story about the quote-unquote keyless works. Basically, I walked into a watch shop over the weekend, and I got to talking with the owner who was there. I went in to see if he could help me fix a case for another watch I'm working on, and we got to talking, and he actually was an awesome dude. He ended up giving me a tour of their shop in the back where they do all of their repairs and, watchmaking, etc. And I was really surprised. I mean, he, I guess, was interested in the fact that I was getting into watchmaking myself, and so we were just, talking about what I had learned so far, etc., etc. And while we were talking, I dropped the phrase keyless works, and I've never seen someone's eyes roll so hard. I mean, this guy looked like I just kicked his puppy or something. Like, he was like, please do not call it the keyless works. I know everyone calls it that on the internet, but it's the setting and winding system. We don't need to call it the keyless works. And I was like, wow, all right. I didn't know that was such a controversial topic, but, as a thank you for, him letting me see their shop and taking me on a tour, I am going to never call it the keyless works again, and it will forevermore be the setting and winding system. So he's never going to see this, but I'm sure he'd be happy that I pointed that out. But back to business. So I loosened the screws for this, what I believe is called the set lever bridge. And it has an integrated spring. It's kind of a spring bridge combination. That screw jumped away from me again. And again. Let me get this off. This is the yoke. And I can use this plastic tool to help me get the yoke and the yoke spring off. The yoke seems really stuck on there. So I think I'm just going to push that out of the way. I'm sorry, you can't really, it's hard to see the yoke spring. But I'm using this plastic tool just to kind of help hold it down so it doesn't jump away. And I can pull it out with the tweezers here. Out of all the springs, most likely to jump away, that's probably right at the top of the list. And I'm just going to leave that yoke on because it seemed really stuck on there, and I'm just going to run it through the ultrasonic cleaner. Hopefully it'll loosen it up enough to where it'll just pop right off. And the last thing I'm going to do with the main plate is put the balance back on. I see a lot of people do this before they run their watch through whatever cleaning process they're going to do, and it makes sense to me. Like I said, it's one of the most fragile parts of the watch movement, and it takes just a minute to mount it back on, put the screw in, and it kind of just holds it in place and minimizes the risk of causing any damage to the hairspring or the balance wheel as it goes through whatever cleaning process you use. Right now, I'm just using ultrasonic, so there's really no reason why it should move at all. It probably would be fine keeping it unmounted on the main plate, but as you move the baskets around, parts can shift, and you can drop things. So doing this just, I don't know, it's the safest thing, and it's not a big deal. Just make sure the pivot is in the jewel. Almost. Remember when I said it was easy? Oh, I think it just fell into place. Yep. Yeah, you can see the wheels just kind of moving back and forth there. Grab the screw. Tighten that down. You can see I'm still really clunky when working on these movements. Hopefully we'll get better though. And I'm just going to use this air. Yep, it's mounted correctly. Just blow some air to see if the balance wheel spins freely. And we are done with the main plate. So I'm going back to this barrel bridge because I still never found the click spring and how to get it out. So I'm just, wait a second. Okay, well, there it is. So it finally decided to fall out. That is tiny. I haven't seen a click spring quite that small yet. I can see why I missed it. All right, be careful with that. Glad we found it. We can finally put the barrel bridge in the dust container. So the very last part of the disassembly is to get the mainspring out of the mainspring barrel. To do that, I'm just going to use my case opening knife as a firm surface because I don't have an anvil yet. Press down on the teeth and that'll pop the lid off. And the mainspring looks like it's in really good shape. Put the lid aside. Doesn't look like there was any excess grease in there. I took my finger cots off for this because I need a little bit more dexterity when taking the mainspring out of the barrel. The last time I tried to do this, the spring went flying, and I didn't lose it. You probably won't lose the mainspring if it goes flying. They're pretty big relative to the other springs in the watch, but they could hit you in the face, which would hurt, especially if it hit you in the eye. And they can break when they pop out of the barrel like that because there's still a lot of tension in there. The spring is wound pretty tightly, and all of that force being exerted at a fast rate can cause the spring to break. Luckily, the other spring that popped out did not break, but it sure did surprise me. So I'm going to try to avoid doing that in the future. And I'm trying to get the barrel arbor out here, which the last coil of the spring hooks onto, but just like some other stuff in this watch, it's pretty stuck in there. So I'm just going to leave the barrel arbor in while I take the mainspring out. So I'm pulling the center of the spring out to get me started with my tweezers, and then I'm just using my fingers to alternate between holding one side of the spring down and the other as I let each coil out one at a time. Just gently trying to work it out. Making sure I apply pressure with one finger before letting go of the other one. And slowly but surely it's coming out. And it's got a lot of life in it still. I don't know how old this spring is. It's not one of the blued steel, really old ones, but it could still be the original spring that was in the watch. Probably is the original spring that was in the watch. And done. Success. The spring is out of the barrel. And with that, the watch is fully disassembled. No major catastrophes. So I'm just going to get all the parts organized here, and then I'm going to start taking them through my cleaning process. And that's the end of part one. Part two, I'll be putting up soon. Yeah, you can just see some dried grease there. Which will be reassembling the watch and seeing if I can get it back to running and hopefully get it running better than when we started. Yeah, thanks again, everyone. Whoever made it this far and took the time to watch this video, I really appreciate it. Again, this is my first time taking apart a watch on camera, and actually my third watch, Disassembly in general. So don't be too hard on me, but I really enjoyed this. So I'm going to try and keep making these videos, and hopefully, some people find it interesting watching someone with little to no experience try and take apart these watches and put them back together. And eventually, I'll try and get some better, recording equipment and microphones if I keep enjoying this. So, with that, one last thank you, and I appreciate you watching.